Yeah, sure, for you, just tell me slow down and say, hang on one second. And if you want, I can always.
The car was trying to.
Well, it depends, it's not.
It's not trying to treat her all night, buddy, so you better get that 80 words over the
Plus,
minute.
anyone higher than that.
Get it going.
Did you not take David's name if you just said in? Right there is.
So we start over.
And then, doesn't Gretchen, and you can't
So
just
much.
watch it again.
It's not too bad.
But I felt bad.
And it's not a big
But yeah, all, I mean, all systems.
You know, so I was looking at my, looking at a lot of property tax bills, isn't those which. Did you know that there's this lottery and gaming credit that you can, like, my brother has it, I don't have it. And so I applied for it today, because if you don't have it, you can apply for it, and it's supposed to be like every property is your primary property is supposed to have it. And I have no idea why maybe it's $154 every year, like well, last year was $154, the year before that was $172.
There's a slight rate on that. You're not going to.
Well,
Now you know.
I want that $154 because it's from the profits from the lottery. These grown-up things
set up there, so people go see, yes.
Okay.
If anybody feels they need a handheld, we're happy to hand the handheld over to you.
I think we're okay. Okay. Let's call the meeting to order at 5:33 p.m. We have confirmation that we are live, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, of giving public notice. Notice was given. Okay, we have public comment next. We have 3 names, all of which have been here before, so I'm not going to read the statement on the conditions of public comment. So first we have Val.
Yep, go right on over here, yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't sit there. Hello, Val Wisniewski. I live on 511 Ransom Road, Hartland. I guess my public comments, I don't, historically I think comments have come like after presentations, so considering there wasn't much substance to the packet for the agenda, I'm wondering, like in the budget hearing itself, I'm assuming that there'll be that dialogue where we can ask questions about the budget and whatnot. Is that the time that we would also, I'm assuming that that would also be the time that we would ask about the school year and how the school is going and all the other details that are not financially related. So, so I guess, and I know you're not allowed, you know, it's just public comment, not to and fro, but I'm assuming that that will be there and then I would have comments at that time. If it's not there, then I would probably want to make a motion to defer public comment until at that time, just so that the community can weigh in on how you feel as a community the school is being run. So.
Okay, next up. Oh, I take that back, there was only one public comment. The other ones were attendance, my apologies. So one person, thank you. Okay, the meeting is official, and we now have to do the election of a chairperson for the meeting. I serve only as the chairperson at this point until we have the electors nominate and approve of a chairperson to run the meeting. So at this point, we're looking for a motion for a person to run the meeting as chairperson.
I move to make Matt Schwab the chairperson for this meeting. I'll second that.
Any other? Okay. All those in favor of Matt Schwab running as chairperson, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, at this point, Matt is now the presider and chairperson of the meeting.
I thought we were gonna vote Gary to give me kind of how to do it. Oh, now we designate a clerk of the meeting? Is that right? Okay. Clerk of the meeting. Can I get some help on what the clerk's role is?
The clerk will continue as the clerk for the meeting unless the clerk isn't present, in which case then the body would act as the clerk. So the current clerk acts as the clerk.
Okay. And I'm good. There's no motion.
Not needed.
You're the clerk. Chris. Excellent. Okay. Introduction of Board of Education members and administration. I guess this is our opportunity. So folks that aren't regular attenders, most of you are, this typically are. So why don't we just work our way from that end to this end as to who we are.
I'll start with Chris Hagen, clerk.
Morgan Henning, first year.
I'm McNulty, first year.
Chris Atzig, president.
Matt Schwab, Chair of Finance Committee, and apparently clerk, chairperson of this meeting.
Excellent. Tina Vogelman, superintendent.
Patrick Austinson, Director of Business Services.
Great.
Very good.
Okay, so now I think Patrick's got a presentation.
Yep.
Should have been in the public materials. I think board members probably make sense to go out here and take a look. And I guess, as I understand it, I think to Val's point, at least in the couple of meetings I've been here during this is more of an open forum. This isn't a board meeting, and so members of the community, I believe, are available or have the option to ask questions. So this should, I think we're all kind of equal participants here, if I understand what the purpose of this meeting here. So obviously, I'll tell you the finance committee, Morgan and I, in our last meeting, spent a lot of time going through this with Patrick, so it has been vetted by the finance committee at least, and Patrick will give you more details and give you the opportunity to ask some questions on specifics.
I'll let you guys get situated. So before we get going, I had an opportunity to introduce myself at an earlier board meeting. I know there's some new faces. I'm new to the district. My name is Patrick Austinson. I'm the Director of Business Services here. I spent about 15 years in the classroom as a classroom teacher. So if you're ever wondering why I'm here, it's because I felt like I can make a bigger impact with kids in this role. As a classroom teacher, you can see at the high school level, quite a few, but to have an impact on an entire district was very, very appealing to me. So that's kind of my roots, that's where I come from, and that's kind of my why. So what's the point of tonight? First thing first is transparency. We want to be upfront and transparent about how we're using your tax dollars and how those are being allocated within our school district. Obviously, it's an opportunity for public input, okay? There's a statutory component. State law says we have to hold this meeting to provide those very opportunities for the tax-paying base. Although we're not going to actually act officially and approve a budget, this is your opportunity as community members to make sure the board members hear you and hear your input. And then they can take that back when they're actually finalizing and voting to either pass or reject the proposed budget. What is the budget? Having worked in corporate finance before I started teaching, a school budget's kind of a unique thing. In the corporate world, you set budgets far before the year starts. In the educational world, you're kind of building the airplane as you're flying it because you're building a budget for the very year that you're in, and you're already kind of in the midst of the school year when you actually pass the budget. Really though, just like a household budget, this budget is gonna look at all of our sources of funds, so all of our revenues that are available to the district, all of the expenses that the district has in operations, so those uses of funds, and then also the fund balances. It's kind of like how much is in reserves that we're gonna carry over year to year. One thing to note, and I will say this more than once, a lot of this is built on estimates because some of the knowns are still, or some of the unknowns are still there, and they will not become known until a little bit later on when we go to finalize this in October. And then obviously that brings us to our last point. October board meeting is when we will actually, as the board, will formally act on this proposed budget. So what is the process that we use? As a district, the budgeting process starts with our mission statement, and that is to empower every single student to discover and develop their unique gifts in a nurturing environment, preparing them to thrive as a compassionate, critical thinker, and a lifelong learner, okay? So that is at the core of what we are trying to achieve as a district, and hopefully our budget, you will see, reflects that very, very set of values. When we're going out and we're building the budget, what are we considering, okay? Obviously, we're gonna consider at its heart the mission and the vision of the district. But nuts and bolts wise, we're gonna look at enrollment, okay? How many students do we have coming in the door? What do class sizes kind of project out to be? And based on that, how much staffing is necessary? What class selection? Are we offering relevant classes? Are we offering classes that are gonna best prepare our students for the challenges that they're going to see going forward? And then lastly, what do we have as far as revenue? And we're gonna consider all sources, our local tax base, the state, as well as the federal funds that we receive. But at the end of the day, it is my job and my mission is to make sure that we allocate those resources as effectively as possible and efficiently as possible to make the greatest impact in the lives of young people. So before we get going, because school funding is so nuanced and it is a very unique animal, I just want to take a few minutes to just go over some big picture kind of approaches to how this all works. So our schools in Wisconsin are funded primarily from two sources, okay? We've got state and local, okay? So we've got our state general aid. Oftentimes you might hear that referred to as equalization aid, and I'll explain why in a second. And then we've got our local tax base. Are there some other sources of funds? Yes, there are, but these are the two primary big buckets that we receive. Now, I just said that state aid is oftentimes called equalization aid. It's because it's used to kind of equal out things. So if you look at these two pie charts, okay, if you have one district that has a great deal of property wealth, okay, you will notice that their revenue is comprised of a greater amount of local taxes than state aid, okay? The state looks at it and says, you have the tax base to support a great school system, we're gonna help you out, but we're gonna help you a little less because we wanna make sure this is equalized across the board so that every community has the same chance to provide a quality education. The second one, if you look at a district that is not quite as property wealthy, you might see the opposite. You might see where local taxes only make up a sliver and state aid makes up a majority of that district's bucket of funds, okay? So again, that's why they call it equalization aid. The technical term is state general aid. But that's where the two primary sources of funds come from and kind of how they work in unison. How much or how big is that pie? That's called your revenue limit, okay? And the way that this works, it's the maximum that our district can bring in. So how big is the pie? Not how is it compromised, but or how is it made up? But how big? How big is that bucket? We look at two things. The first is membership. Okay, membership is kind of a vague term, but it really looks at how many students, and it looks at a 3-year trailing average. Okay. It also looks at a maximum revenue amount per member, okay? One would think that this number is fixed for all districts. It's not. The model was developed many years ago, and they base your maximum revenue per member off of your spending back when this system was put in place. So you'll notice in a future slide, when I show you some comparatives, that not every district's maximum revenue per member is exactly the same, okay? If you multiply those two things together, that gives us a revenue limit with no exemptions, okay? And when you think of exemptions, those would be things like outside of the revenue limit. Like if you guys voted for a referendum and you passed a referendum, that would be outside of the revenue limit. That would be one of those exemptions. So again, this is just the basic formula of how big that pot of funds is. Wisconsin Public Schools also uses what's called fund accounting, okay? The easiest way to think about this is they're just like separate checkbooks, okay? Each one has its own rules, its own revenues, sources of funds, and purposes, okay? You will hear us talk a lot about the general fund, Fund 10, okay? It is our main operating account, okay? Salaries and benefits for all of our general education teachers, administrators, support staff are all paid out of the general fund. Supplies, textbooks, technology, building maintenance, utilities, busing, transportation, all of those things will come out of the general fund unless they are specifically related to special education, okay? This fund can carry a balance, and we'll talk about fund balance going forward, but it's kind of like your emergency fund, okay? Fund 27 is the special education fund. The state of Wisconsin has very, very specific rules for special education, how it's funded, how the funds are spent, how they're tracked. This is just like having a separate checking account for only these types of expenses, okay? It is funded directly from Fund 10, so when we figure out what Fund 27 needs for the year, we move that amount over. It's not usually one time, but monthly, but you set a budget of how much that transfer is going to be. It does not carry a balance, so each and every year it's zeroed out. So if at the end of the year we spent a little more than we projected in Fund 27, we have to do an additional transfer from Fund 10 to zero it out so that it's all squared away and starts at zero for the next year. Fund 50, that's all of our food service, school nutrition. Again, not quite as stringent, but there are specific rules that our food service, our school nutrition, has to run out of its own fund. That's required by both the USDA and DPI. Fund 46, long-term capital improvements or projects, okay? This is like a savings account for big ticket items that the district needs as we age these buildings, okay? It was already approved by the board, so it takes board approval to establish the fund, and then it also takes board approval to make contributions to that fund. Fund 80 is our community service fund. Just like the name implies, it's used for community service, something that will benefit not just the K-12 operation, but the community. The primary purpose of our Fund 80 is to run the daycare that we have here on site. Special projects, Fund 21, it can be tied to grants, donations, or gifts. We use it primarily as our donations account to track any money that is donated to the district. Now, I put these other two funds on here, Fund 38 and Fund 39. They're both debt related, okay? We don't use them. We are one of very, very, very few districts in the state of Wisconsin that do not use them. We don't long-term borrow, we don't short-term borrow, we don't have any debt whatsoever, okay? Fund 38 is referred to as the non-referendum debt service, so if the board were to approve some debt that the taxpayers didn't have to, it would be all Fund 38. If we were to go to referendum, all of the debt service, all of those bonds that are going to be approved in that referendum would be held in Fund 39, and all that activity would be placed there. So again, I want to reiterate that. We do not use these funds at the present. That's a very, very unique in our current landscape. So, what were some of the changes that just came out of the biennium budget? Okay? The biennial budget, there were some wins for education. Depends who you talk to, how big those wins were, you'll get different opinions. The first bullet I will tell you though is there was no appropriation of an increase in general aid whatsoever, okay? So that general or equalization aid we just talked about, that is held at status quo. There's been no increase, okay? However, they did increase as part of the governor's line item veto, the $325 per pupil revenue limit increase, okay? Now what I want to stress here, this only increases the size of our pot, not how it's filled, okay? So when you looked at those two graphs, those two pie charts, the pie got bigger, but the state slice stayed exactly the same size. So if we want to fund the district up to that maximum authority, the local community will take a bigger slice of that pie, okay? So no additional funding, they just allowed us to make the pie or the pot a little bit bigger. Some wins, some definite wins in special education. Special education reimbursement increased by 10%. It went from 32% to 42%, okay? Now, the effective rate is probably gonna be somewhere around 39% because this is what's called some certain, okay? They don't guarantee, they just say, here's the pot of funds we have available. Depending on how many claims are at it, depends how big or how much you could get back. If you look at historical reference, the effective rate has held at about 3% below what is set. So this budget is built assuming 39% effective return or reimbursement rate, okay? The last thing that they changed, part of the membership calculation looks at a 3-year rolling average of our enrollment. It also looks at some summer school numbers that are weighted. It also looks at 4K. And they did make a change to the way they weighted 4K. Instead of being 0.4 FTE is short for full-time equivalents, it's now 0.6. So that does help us boost the overall membership number used in the revenue limit formula. So that brings us to what I'm proposing and what the district is proposing as far as a budget. But this budget, like I said, is built on some assumptions, okay? First is membership, okay? This is built on a membership of 1,137 students, or 1,137 full-time equivalents, okay? If you look at that chart, it's fairly flat, okay? That's another positive for this district. About 80%, according to DPI, about 80% of public school districts in Wisconsin are experiencing some sort of declining enrollment, okay? They're declining at different speeds and different rates, but that's a hefty majority. So although we are declining slowly, we had a really nice bump up this year from what we had initially projected. Now this number will not become finalized. We just did our third Friday in September count. And once we get those numbers processed, we will get that number back and we will have hard numbers so that when we go to the board in October, it'll be firm. It'll be, this is what it's gonna be. Open enrollment. Open enrollment is another element that will heavily weigh on our budget, okay? This year, it's about $10,200 for every net student you lose, okay? In years past, if you look here, even just back to 23, 24, we were netting a negative, about 40 kids. You could do the math, 40 some kids times $10,000 a kid. That's money that goes out the door from the school of residence to the school they're attending, okay? As we close that gap, and our projections are, we should be pretty flat, We should be about, we're projecting just a small deficit going out the door of 2 students, but as we close that gap, that is a financial win for the district.
That's a huge point for us. That's like 3 years ago, $400,000.
Out the door, yeah, right off the top.
I think as board members, and Tina takes some pride in this, Tina's been here for those 2 years. All you heard us board members all talk, everybody, Chris had since the longest tenured at 3 years, entering your 3rd year, right? Yeah. So I think we take a lot of pride that Hartland has kind of turned the ship around in terms of students going elsewhere for their education.
A couple other of the assumptions that this is built on, and this is gonna go more towards the levy side. The actualized equalized value, what the heck does that mean? It's how much property wealth do we have? What's our tax base for the district, okay? Department of Revenue puts out a July 1 estimate. However, it's not till October 1 that those are finalized, that we can actually take it to the bank and say, this is what it's gonna be. In addition, the allocation of equalized aid, DPI puts out an estimate in July, and that's what this budget is based on. Typically, it doesn't change a ton, but it can change. And those will ebb and flow until we get our numbers on October 15th, okay? And then lastly, the final tax levy. That's gonna be approved by the board at that October board meeting, once we have all of these hard numbers. So, what does this look like for us as a district, okay? So I mentioned before, this budget is built on an assumption of 1,137 members. At our per pupil amount is $11,693. Again, that went up by $325. I will say this budget is built using our full authority, okay? We have some non-reoccurring exemptions in the neighborhood of about 700,000. We have 0 reoccurring, which means our bucket, our total authority is just over $14 million. How does that break up for our community? It's really about 2/3 local, 1/3 state. Okay? Yes?
What's the one-time
There's a couple items. There's a personal property exemption. There's a computer aid exemption.
kind of some small ones?
Yeah, it's just, they apply, not every district gets them, but if you plug everything into the formula, some districts qualify, some districts don't. Good question.
Is part of that occurring our whole town list?
Yes, as well, the declining enrollment, yep.
So
Yep.
how much of that 721,000 is from whole town?
I don't have that in front of me, but I can pull that later on.
Because then that'll determine, right, because then that money is gone next year.
If, yes, correct.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that we're getting at the declining enrollment exemption, right?
Mhm.
You can see that's something as we look to the future, we probably don't get as much next year, right? Because we are holding closer to steady on
Yep.
enrollment than other districts which are dropping more precipitously, so.
Like I said earlier, not every district has the same revenue per member, okay? Ours is 11,693, and if you compare us to some of our other feeder districts, Swallow, North Lake, Merton are all very, very close to us. But if you look at some of the higher, Stone Bank, Richmond, and Lake Country, Arrowhead, they all receive greater revenue per member, okay? Why? It's because when they set this in place, they were spending at a higher level than we were, so their base got set at a higher level than ours, okay? Not that it makes a ton of sense, that's just how the system is built. So I think, not that we're gonna compare ourselves to everybody else when we run this district, we wanna be great here, but I think it's important to see how we compare as far as what we can receive in terms of
I
revenue.
think we're at the lower end.
We are.
Statewide as well. I mean,
Yep.
all these schools are pretty much near the bottom end of the food chain on that, but, I mean, I think some of the some of the schools that are big spenders when this was set can be, you know, $1,000, $2,000, $2,500 more per student than we are. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's a testament to our district to be at the low end of this and also have no debt and all these other things.
And that, those numbers do not include, districts that have done a referendum to increase their operational expenses.
Correct.
So like a school like Swallow, right, even though their, revenue looks less, it possibly is more because they've come to.
Correct. This is only within the revenue limit itself, yes. So how does this shake out, okay? If you look big picture, top line, okay, all across all funds, gross expenditures are about 21,300,060, okay? That represents about a 6% increase year over year. A couple things to consider in that number. We saw a 12.8% increase in health insurance, and we provided a 2.9% increase to salaries. And the health insurance piece could have really been much worse. I can't take credit for it, but my predecessor, they started at 20, and they got creative, they worked really, really hard to bring that down to the 13% neighborhood. Because there are a lot of districts, and private companies for that matter, that are staring 18, 20, 21% benefit cost increases that are quite hard kind of to stomach. If you look at the interfund transfers, you will see about 1.95 million being transferred. That is comprised of two things. One, the Special Education Fund 27 budget, okay? So a chunk of it is this 1.69 million. The other chunk is a Fund 47 transfer in the amount of about $415,000, okay? And I will talk more about that in a couple slides. But if you're wondering kind of what those transfers are, that's what we're looking at. Fund 10, again, general fund. It's the fund we use to run most of the operations of the district. We're looking at a budget of about revenues of about 16.7 million. And this is a balanced Fund 10 budget. So we have expenses of 16.7 and change million. Now you'll notice, like I told you, the revenue limit got bigger, but the state said we're not kicking in anymore. Revenues only are going up by 1.8%. Expenses are going up by 6.7. And in an inflationary period, this is an issue that many districts are looking at. Special Education Fund. So again, this is our Fund 27, about 1.7 million budgeted. That's a 2.26 year-over-year increase. I'm a big year-over-year percentage person because it kind of puts it into an apples to apples comparison. How does our spending compare to some of the other districts in our area? We're on the low end. Again, these are the last numbers that are final, 23-24, because 24-25 isn't ready for consumption yet. But we're just over 14,000, and I think only Richmond School or Richmond District came in lower than that. So fiscal responsibility has been showcased. Fund 10. Fund 10 balance. Again, I like to call this the emergency fund, okay? I taught personal finance for 15 years, so this is near and dear to my heart. If you don't have an emergency fund, it's a recipe for failure, okay? So we use our fund balance for a few key reasons, okay? One, like I said, we don't short-term borrow. We don't long-term borrow either, but timing of cash flows when you have an adequate fund balance becomes much less of an issue. It shows financial stability, okay? If we were ever to have to go borrow, it surely will help our credit rating, okay? Federal funding. If you're watching the news or consuming any of it, You're probably hearing about what's happening with the Department of Ed. Nobody really knows. Is it gonna be here? Is it not gonna be here? Now you can see 23-24, we had a great deal of federal funding. A lot of that was COVID ESSER funds, okay? So even if you take that out of the picture, you can see from 24-25 to 25-26, it was basically cut in half. And we work with Baird Wealth Management a lot, that they kind of help a lot of districts. The word out is count on 0 federal funds for next year. So we are trying to do everything in our power. Question?
You can finish your sentence.
Okay, we are trying to do everything in our power to best position us if that were the worst case scenario does happen.
This might have predated you, but do you know if the 24-25 number included some of that carryover ESSER fund?
I don't think so. I think we had to spend it.
Yeah, I thought
in the prior year budget, I think you could invoice it if it was, there were some rules where a little could spill over, but I think it was still budgeted.
So that number is truly what came from the federal.
Correct.
I
can double check for you guys, but I'm almost positive it had to be spent as tied to the 23-24 year.
I'm pretty sure the ESSER funds were in the neighborhood of 300,000 to 400,000 in 23-24.
I think that's right, because I remember there being some contracts that had to be approved in that year in order to spend those funds, so we could.
But I can check on it just to verify.
Not a big deal, not a big deal.
But the stories, even if it's 400, which I think is at the high end of 23-24, take that out of 700, you're down to 300. You know, last year it looks like it's at like 250, 2 something. This year we're budgeting, I think it's 165.
Yeah, it was right around 160.
I just want to interject here because whether it's relevant to this or not, coming from another district and understanding how ESSER funding worked, this district did an amazing job of actually using ESSER funds for what ESSER funds were intended for. And they hired some really incredible staff and some positions that were invaluable to the work that needed to be done during that time. And so much so that we determined that there were about 3 positions that we were keeping. We were gonna find a way in 23, 24, 24, 25 to keep some of those positions. Some of that was through allocating them to some of our federal funding positions and making them Title III or Title IV. So that's the work when Patrick was alluding to trying to come up with ways and being creative about how are we going to pull away from anything that's federally funded so that it doesn't impact our budget, but also doesn't impact the great work that some of our staff are doing. We've already begun that process. So Amy and I looked at it last year to really try to go, okay, how do we pull this one out of Title IV? So like one of our reading specialists, we've already begun doing that. Our behavioral specialist, how do we allocate her differently within a budget so that we don't have to A, lose people, or B, worry about relying on federal funds. So just so you know, we're making hard decisions to ensure that the great people that we have employed stay employed, but also that our budget doesn't get impacted in such a negative way.
And that brings us to just kind of looking at fund balance. Again, this is kind of our emergency fund, you call it what you will. From 24, 25, actually, you know what? I think I flipped those numbers. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I have my 24, 25, and 25, 26 balances flipped. So we had.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my questions.
Yeah.
Dipping into our funds.
And you know what? I looked at this presentation. I would have thought I got that.
I missed it too. We're all
So we had about a $400,000 increase in fund balance from 24, 25 to 25, 26, but that doesn't tell the whole story. We had an $800,000 surplus, okay? We took $400,000 and we moved it to a restricted fund balance, okay? So Fund 10 can have 2 different buckets. Unrestricted, you can spend it however you need it. Restricted is earmarked. The restricted fund balance that we have $400,000 set aside is for capital improvements, okay? Again, it's that forward-thinking approach saying someday, sometime soon, we're gonna need these funds to do work on our facilities, okay? And hopefully not tomorrow, but there's gonna come a day, yes.
So is that different than Fund 46?
It is. The distinction is there's less restriction on a restricted fund balance, that doesn't make any sense, than a Fund 46 contribution. That is a little bit different. But when you look at this, the way I look at things is a percentage of your operating budget. It's just like when you ask someone, how much do you need to retire? You get all sorts of answers, right? It depends, okay? But when you go out and you talk to people that manage school districts across the state, you talk to people that work for Baird, that consult with districts across the state, a good benchmark that they give you is 30 to 35% of your operating budget, okay? So after, and these numbers are not flip-flopped, it's just these guys are flip-flopped. We will be at about 34.25% of operating, okay? So we're within that kind of, that sweet spot of 30 to 35%. Fund 46, okay, again, this is our capital improvements fund, okay? I'm proposing about 414 and change get transferred to Fund 46, okay? Why does this make sense? Well, it's a proactive approach, okay? Instead of trying to be reactive and go to you guys and say, hey, we have a bunch of these big ticket things, we want to go to referendum. We want to get ahead of that and use our operating, within the revenue limit, those operating dollars to start adding to that war chest, okay, or continue to add to that war chest, okay? It allows us to pay cash. If you pay cash, obviously you're not paying borrowing costs. It's not contingent on having to pass a referendum. So when there are needs in the district, we can go ahead and address those needs when they make sense to do so, okay? Again, it's really about trying to be proactive, forward-thinking, instead of this reactive approach of, we got a bunch of problems, and then having to come to the community and say, we'd like to go out for referendum. And you can look around, they don't pass all that often, especially in our area. So we want to get ahead of that.
Can I interject here as
Sure.
well? And some of you might wonder, well, how do you know what your problems are, right? Like, what does that look like? And so part of our strategic plan and part of the work that Patrick did with Greg when he got here was to align with Findorf, and they did a full facility review. So they walked through all of our buildings, they turned on water faucets, they did it all. And they just last week had their first preliminary meeting. And so they will be bringing to the board, probably to finance first and then to the full board, the 10-year facility plan. And so that is why this account is so important, because if you're over at South or you're at North or even here at North Shore, you see some parking lots that need some work, some playgrounds that might need some work. This is why this account is so important.
Absolutely, and I probably I know I left this out, but Fund 46 is directly tied to that capital improvement 10-year plan. If it's not in your 10-year plan, you cannot spend Fund 46 dollars on it, okay? We do have a 10-year plan. It's just about getting it up to date, and we brought in Findorf, who's the expert in facilities, like Tina said, to do a comprehensive site study. Greg and I sat down last week, looked at what they brought to us. They're gonna come back and they'll be presenting this to the entire board either in October or November, depending on when those reports are finalized. But again, that's a 24% increase in that Fund 46 balance. And if we can continue this proactive behavior, when we do have to do those major facility upgrades and repairs, we'll have the cash balance to do so.
Or at least we'll have demonstrated, we don't have the cash balance to do a $5 million repair. We've got to go to referendum, but we've been fiscally responsible for the last 15 years.
Yeah, and to echo that, that's this slide right here. These are projects that were completed or are set to be completed, facility capital improvement projects within our operating budget, okay? These are not Fund 46 dollars being spent down to do these. I'm not gonna read every one of these to you, but this is a comprehensive list of what was done last year, as well as what is projected and planned for this year, okay? And these are all within the budget that I'm proposing tonight, and have nothing to do with the Fund 46 dollars that are in our Fund 46 or are planned to be in our Fund 46.
Do you have dollars of those, or are you getting that?
Of these?
Yeah.
I don't have them off the top of my head, but they're budgeted in aggregate, but I do have them, yeah. Some of them, we haven't gone out for bid yet, but we based the bids on like, hey, we did this similar sized parking lot, and we take a factor increase that they give us and we kind of ballpark it. Greg kind of has ballparks, but we were in the bid process coming up here very quickly.
I'm just wondering if there's ever, this might be a question for my wife, but is there ever a time when, like for instance, the replace the dishwasher for the retrofit, like to me, like that, glad it got done, but it shouldn't be a highlight on capital projects funded outside of 46. I feel like that should be something that we go to the community for, or even like raise some kind of money, I don't know if HLSD would get involved in something like that. But I mean, it's like, I don't know, maybe it was a commercial dishwasher that was $10,000.
Times 5.
Okay.
50 grand.
Yeah, so that's what I'm curious about.
Yes, yeah.
Because when I see that as a community member, I'm like, it's $400, why not just a highlight?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you see what I'm saying?
I can tell you like the seven entry doors, that was in the neighborhood of about 120,000.
Yeah.
New plow truck was 65.
That would enhance this slide.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, I'll take your feedback, so for next year we can take a look at what were the outlays. Yeah. The roof was 140.
Yeah, there's some ones on there that clearly are big ticket.
Yeah, and I know a bunch of the asphalt projects, asphalt at north, I think was 90, south was 160. I think the other one was right around 100 as well.
So I have in my notes.
Yeah, from when we talked. Yeah, I had that written down for finance committee, but I don't have it with me.
No,
So, no, good, no questions. Oh, sorry.
No, it's just good to know that it's, because that's impressive, right?
Yeah, we're doing it within.
We know how much it is, and it was like outside of the.
Even if we had a total.
Right.
Yeah.
That's.
We have been doing those on Matt Schwab's recommendations with the finance
Mhm.
meetings.
Yep.
So they are out there for the finance committee agendas, for running totals and such like that.
Yep.
So they are out there.
So tax levy. I like looking at tax levies more than I like looking at mill rates, because mill rates, you can just, if property values change, it's not an apples to apples comparison year over year, in my opinion. What this budget will do is we'll increase the levy by about 7.5%, a little north of 7.5%. Looking at 9.45 million as far as the overall school levy, what we're going to our local community for. If you want to see that in terms of mill rates, the mill rate went down because property values went up. But if you look at this, I think this is a nice kind of perspective slide. If you had a $500,000 home, what does this look like? If you have a $750,000 home, what does this look like?
So this includes the 7.67%.
Correct. This is exactly what it would be under this proposed budget. Good question.
And you said the mill rate went down.
The mill rate went down. Our equalized values preliminary numbers went up by about 9.4% across the board. That's all I have, so I will welcome any questions.
I have a question. So the food service fund, we're budgeting for a deficit.
Yep.
And so it looks like last year was almost 60 grand. So based on what we have in the fund right now, that's like a 30 to 6 year kind of cushion. What happens with that? How does that How does that work?
Good question. We're overdue for a price increase. Okay, I actually had a really brief meeting today, actually, with Chart Bubbles runs our food service, with our food service director. We're meeting next Tuesday. We're losing money on some of our a la carte items. And so we're gonna revisit, kind of get ourselves in line with what Merton and Arrowhead and some of the neighboring districts are doing as far as pricing. And we're hoping that projecting that that's gonna fill the void. Good question. Any other questions? Yeah.
Does the income from the daycare go directly into funding?
Nope. 80, yes.
It does?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. 80 is it's a self-sustaining fund. It doesn't get commingled.
All we really get, I mean, we get some rent from them.
Yep.
So there's a bonus to the district, but none of their, if they raise tuition to their, it doesn't go to us, it just goes to the fund.
Okay, so
We get a rent payment from them.
Okay, so that's an independent lease entity for the space?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's like a subsidiary, basically.
Well, we can't move their revenue ever to Fund 10.
No, you can actually levy to Fund 80 in and of itself, we just don't do that. Yeah, we just try to keep it a self-sustaining fund, so that we don't also levy outside of that. Yes.
So if we stay on Fund 80, it is communities ed, right? So what else is being used out of that fund for the community?
To my knowledge, and I started in July, a bulk of it is that daycare operation. I don't know a ton of other uses for those funds at this point. I think it's just primarily the daycare operation.
Yeah, I don't think there's a running through us.
I know, I look back in years past, I know we did some community events, fireworks and things like that, but I think at that time we were actually levying an additional tax for Fund 80, and we're using those funds for those items. And since we're not levying an additional tax, those are not budgeted for.
So Fund 80, there's no additional money, that's what you're saying?
It's correct, yeah, we're not taking any additional tax, it's within we're funding it within our revenue.
Can I just, because I absolutely remember what you're talking about. My only other thing or my question on this is the Little Red Schoolhouse. Because we do utilize that still for some of our senior citizens to come in and do the Wii gaming and some of those fun activities. And we're looking at different opportunities for them. But where does that funding to pay for that building, the running of that building, the upkeep of that building, and just
It's all Fund 10.
It's all Fund 10.
Just like it's just like having another school building that would be operating.
I think, that if we were to ever go to referendum, right, using like something like the Little Red Schoolhouse where people that don't have kids in the community can get into the schools and see the value of their schools, I think that would be beneficial, so that if we had a referendum, we'd be able to reach out because only 30% of people in our community actually have kids in schools, so I think that was the intention of funding.
Yeah, good selling point, yeah.
Just want to finance person.
Sure.
So like the words that you guys use are really make sense to me. The 1.147 million for Fund 80.
Yeah.
That's all based on, does any of that come from our tax levy or is all, it's all independent? Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
I just wanted to.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, the only fund transfers that we do are to Fund 27 and Fund 46 in this budget. Anybody else?
What percentage of the Fund 10 budget is salary and benefits?
About it's like 63%. It's just shy of 2/3.
What is the current, so I forget the figure that you said that we get per pupil.
16 or the 11,693.
What is the current like floor, right? Like of what?
11,000. Yeah, the low revenue limit is 11,000.
We talked about Fund 27.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got an increase, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming private schools still get 90% of their.
Yeah.
But like, I've got a handful of questions.
No,
for
go
you.
ahead.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead.
So open enrollment in and out, so is that number like including people that have open enrolled in, it's not just a snapshot of this year, it's the whole district, you know, like if somebody open enrolled in 4 years ago, is that?
They're still counted because it's a net, how many in do you have versus how many out do you have?
Okay.
So if they were out 2 years ago, but they're still out, they're still counted in the out number.
Right, same with the in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, closing the gap.
Okay, so we're not tapping into fund 10. This is a question, I guess, for the board. What kind of legislative advocating have you been doing for the district in order to advocate for our public schools? There's a day of capital, or have any of our representatives been through the school recently?
I can talk a little, I mean, Chris probably want to talk a little bit too. I mean, there's been 2 or 3 meetings of all the Arrowhead and the feeder school districts. And one topic of conversation at the last meeting was kind of an advocacy, it's not, we're doing it, Swallow's doing it, and Richmond's doing it, we're all talking about something different as a coordinated effort. There was a survey that went out to all the board members where they could put in kind of there was a large discussion on it at that meeting, and then there was a survey that went out. I assume at maybe the next joint meeting, we're gonna have some discussion on what that looks like.
Do they still have that day of capital?
I don't.
I mean, laws we used to put it up, are we still laws members or not?
You're not laws.
Okay, so we wouldn't utilize that anyway. Speaking of all the districts meeting, is there been conversations about consolidation?
Yeah, I can talk. I don't want to steal everybody's thunder. Because I'm the chair of this stuff.
Yeah.
Usually Chris has to answer. No, that probably got the most airtime at the last meeting. The meeting before that on the feeder schools, each district was to go back and ask if the board was interested in continuing the conversation, basically. We said yes, Arrowhead said yes, Martin said yes, North Lake didn't respond, Stonebank said no, Lake Country said no, but I think they were kind of yes, but we can't afford to pay anything for it, so they didn't say, that's kind of how I read in his comments. So there has been, I think what Arrowhead has taken the lead in trying to put together a group led by probably Jeff Gross, and then is he principal or superintendent at Merton? Or superintendent at Merton, who's been down this path. I think they're going to start looking at just the economic side of it, in terms of what it would look like if districts got together, and then report back. And so yes, discussions are happening.
Can I address your question?
Yeah, that's
Legislation. So over the last couple of years, I've had one-on-one meetings with Chris Kappiga, Cindy Duco, and Barbara Dietrich to discuss education in general, and then also our district specifically. I keep in regular contact with them, and did go to a Capitol Day with the 1848 project. So even though we're not part of WASB anymore, the 1848 project still has a Day at the Capitol opportunity.
I'm not familiar with that group.
1848 project. If you look it up online, it'll.
So are they're a state school board association type thing, or?
Sort of, they're an advocacy group for supporting local elected officials.
All
Providing,
local elected officials?
I don't know what, I mean, that's a great thing to go to their about on their website. I can tell you that.
Just the name of the group kind of sounds cool.
They do a lot with education. They do offer educational opportunities for board members for training. So it's another alternate place.
Like fiscal training or policy?
Yes, both. They do both. But they did sponsor a Capitol Day as well, and it was actually more intimate than the WASB version. It allowed for more one-on-one time with the different representatives.
That's what the other one was too.
Yeah, well, but there's a lot of people there, and they're in session. So this one was really nice though. So
it was great. I was able to meet with Joel Kitchens as well from East Door County. And he is I think he's the chair of the education committee for the legislature. I forget who it is for the state senate. Both sides?
Yeah.
Who's a side?
Well, like, Democrats and Republicans there, or was it just one?
I don't know for sure if there were both sides, if you will. I just know that the people who were there wanted to meet with the different school board members and provide their perspective on what's happening at the Capitol. They gave us updates on what had happened with the special education funding and the initiative there for the legislature to try to push to increase it, so I was happy to see that. So anyway, to answer your question, that at least from my perspective as an individual board member, and then everything that Matt said as well, we're working on the district-wide level to see if by collecting our strengths, we might be able to encourage them to come in and actually meet with a town hall or have conversations.
I think with our numbers being so great with open enrollment, we've got no debt or anything, like, I mean, we're successful, right?
Yes.
So like, they should be coming here, but they didn't see what we're doing, right? So
They've been invited.
Okay. What are we currently paying, out for voucher schools, right? Because that comes out of our budget?
Patrick, do you know that?
Sorry.
I asked you this question. She's asking what we pay for
To
vouchers.
voucher schools for students that, I'm assuming that we have vouchers.
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can get the number. It's probably in our notes.
So it's 10102 open out?
Yep, 10102, that's the right number for
Well,
vouchers.
that's not vouchers.
No, I know.
Correct, I just said plus transportation and then I have voucher. I don't think
Voucher is higher.
it is higher, I'm trying to see if I
It's
wrote it. I
significantly
know I
higher.
asked and I see right with it, I know.
I wanna say, don't quote me on this, but I wanna say it's around 16.
I feel like you're right.
I'm fairly certain, but I just don't know the exact figure.
Do you know how much went into Fund 46 last year, at the end of last year?
We did the $400,000 into the restricted instead.
Okay. Out of curiosity, the recount, how much did that cost the district?
Did we give you that, what was that?
It's right around 11, I think.
10, 11, around 10,000 bucks.
11,000.
11,000.
It's in the previous meeting.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know which one, but I would guess Mayor.
Okay.
Right, June. I think
Sure.
June.
That's it, that's all I have, sorry, thank you for your patience.
I just wanted to say thank you, Patrick, for
Yeah.
laying it out to me. You did. As a layperson with this stuff, I think I got like 90%.
That's my teacher, Brian.
Yeah.
I can get back there sometimes.
I have a couple of questions, I think they're, so Fund 46. Fund 46, so it's two parts, right, the restricted and unrestricted.
I'm gonna stop you real quick.
Okay.
So, Fund 10.
Okay,
So Fund 10 is our general fund,
yeah,
but you can also kind of earmark dollars within Fund 10.
okay.
In what are
Fund 10 has the.
restricted versus unrestricted.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's what covers the maintenance, like the long-term.
Operations.
Operations and long-term 10-year plan.
Nope.
No.
Fund 46,
Okay.
anything, so the way Fund 46 works is, if you have a 10-year capital improvement plan, and you go to your board and you say, we would like to establish a Fund 46 that is aligned with our capital improvement plan. They would then vote on it to establish the fund, then you can start actually funding it.
Okay,
Anything put into Fund 46 has to be part of your 10-year capital plan, or it does not qualify for a withdrawal.
so that's the restricted money I think I'm looking at. So, right, I think Val was saying that you cashed, you answered that you cashed $400,000 somewhere.
Yep.
But then there was also money cashed to funds 46.
No dollars this year in
No
Fund
dollars,
46.
okay.
It was instead, in lieu of, instead of, yep.
Okay,
And it was because of the timing,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Because
Okay.
otherwise we would have put it.
Yep.
So then,
You have a specific window when you, if you were gonna do it, you have to do it.
okay,
And we decided to do it after that window, so when to do a restricted fund 10.
can you fund things that are in your 10-year plan with non-Fund 46?
Absolutely.
Okay. How do you determine what makes a list for Fund 46 10-year plan?
Well, that's why we reached out to Findorf. We actually, I shouldn't say, I wasn't part of it, but they brought in a number of different companies that work in school construction and facilities. And they decided to go with Findorf to do what's called a site study or assessment. And they look at, and what's really nice is they will prioritize it 1 through 4. Like, if it's a 1, like, it should be done tomorrow. If it's a 4, it's like, hey, your roof is now 12 years old, usual life is X. You're gonna wanna look at setting some funds aside for the roof, because it's probably gonna need to be done in the next 15 years.
Okay. Let me clarify my question a little.
Sure.
Is everything that's in the 10-year plan like a need, or is there ever anything in there that's a want?
Well, it's kind of for us to decide, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I think the idea is to, definitely the needs are gonna make their way into there.
Right.
You know, if somehow we thought we needed a new building or something that would, you
Right.
know, versus rehabbing, and we're certainly not in a position where we need a new building or something, but you know, something like that would go in there, and that may be, you know, something like that could be a want, like maybe we wanna build a new gymnasium here because we want a nicer gym or something, like that would certainly be a want that we could put in there to do that, we don't necessarily be a need.
I think the way I personally look at it is, does this item affect our ability to deliver our core educational programs
Okay.
right now? And if it does, to me, that's a need.
Okay. So I guess, I'm trying to think of this from like maybe a student or teacher perspective, right? When you hire out a company, generally you're gonna look at the facilities, right? Do we need a room that's sort of having really displays of the leaders, what's the floor like those are all very logical little things to think about. Those are the same things that we worry about for our house, right? But thinking of it as like one of the 1,100 students that goes to school in one of our buildings, is that also including things like, how do we make this place a more interactive environment for learning? Is it including like the replacement of outdoor playground equipment, and like bigger cost items like that, that either do currently exist and need replacement, or don't currently exist and maybe would be well loved and utilized.
I'm gonna give you,
Not in need.
I'm gonna give you a very vague answer.
Yeah.
It depends.
Okay.
I think a lot of that we would love to fund within Fund 10.
Okay.
And leave the Fund 46, at least this is the way I view it.
Okay.
Fund 46 is, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z, and it's gonna cost us $500,000, and we're planning for that because we know it's coming, it's 10 years down the road. Whereas like, hey, we wanna a more inclusive playground, a more interactive playground, whatever it might be. We gotta change out the wood chips, we gotta do this. That's more of like Fund 10 type operating stuff, in my opinion.
Because we have the fund.
Yeah,
Right, or that would have been like Fund 80 as well, right, because it's something that's community use or personal.
well, if it's here on the grounds and it's primarily for K-12, that's a hard sell to use Fund 80. The auditors might look at that and say, yeah, I don't think so.
I would say when we start to think about interactive, think about the North Library and the work that we did for the North Library, right? So there was a partnership with that, but it also came out of, I don't know what fund, because that's not my world. But we talk about that. We also this year just started again, feeding off of what we're doing at North, we're at South. We hired a staff person and really building the South program, and then we're gonna be continuing. We are in a constant, right now, particularly now that we have the plans in place to really think about innovative ways to affect students in the classrooms. And that's where I think we're seeing a lot of that spend come in. We're looking at a green room for next year. This year, our #1 priority was to get away from movie making with iMovie, which we've been doing for years and years and years, and we went to digital media and production. So kids are getting a little bit more into that piece. So those are kind of the ways that innovatively we're trying to impact students and meet them at their level.
And one more thing on the 10-year plan. Now, our director of building the grounds and myself sat with Findorf for a preliminary. They did put in there things like paint and like just, it's up to us and the board to decide what actually makes it into that 10-year plan.
I'm just thinking like, these guys from Pindore are probably looking at the playground and going like.
No, their report's gonna be more, it's nuts and bolts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like structural.
So then-
But it's pretty comprehensive though, like,
Okay,
I mean, quite frankly, they're gonna list any possible thing
yeah,
that they see. And then it's up for us to say, and for the board and for the finance committee to say, we don't really need this, but we really want to.
It wouldn't have something like they need like big computer screens in every room, because we wanna go to some unique teaching structure, like that would come from
Those are
us.
not capital elements, they're not fixtures.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think big picture, Findor looks at what's here,
Yes.
and you might be talking about something that isn't here,
sure.
and, so I think the Findor analysis is what we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, it's a
what
site
needs to
study.
be fixed or maintained, as opposed to what
This is a good example. So, I mean, I can't say that I've been to the south recently, so I may be completely wrong in this one. But the south playground could, at least the last time I saw it, maybe it's been reviewed and I have not seen it, could use an upgrade. Is that something that Findor would look at and be like, hey, this is starting to be either structurally unsound or like causing problems or something like that, and say, we would recommend refurbishment?
Yeah, if it were like, hey, the asphalt is the bedding, you know, you're gonna probably need to rip it out, bring a new base in, you know, that kind of stuff, that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at having the latest and greatest monkey bars. But yeah, if it's a structural,
Yeah.
they're definitely looking at
So
it.
they're looking at those things. So then whose responsibility is it to look at, like, it's structurally sound, so Findor doesn't catch it, but it needs to be done, it needs to fall into a budget. Or like here at North Shore, right, like, I've heard great reviews about the new swing set. And like, sounds like they're working out a system on how they make sure that everybody gets to take a turn. But they could clearly benefit from more swing sets
Yeah.
or some other equipment. So who looks at those opportunities and says, hey, this is going great, we should put in another swings.
Yeah.
We have the funds for that, or we don't have the funds for that, we can save for that. Or hey, the playground at South needs to be replaced, like, we need to make a plan for that, that's not the 10-year plan.
It's my job to listen to our building principals, teaching staff, district administrators, as well as the board on that, and make sure I'm getting kind of that message is filtering its way up to me so that I can adequately budget for those items.
And all those conversations are happening. I mean,
Ongoing.
I've already, from the
Ongoing.
moment he came in, I said, South, we need to take a look at South. Dave knows that. I in fact went to Morgan, I think, maybe a year ago and sent partnership stuff from an HLEF perspective.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys do this, you know, we get this much raised, can you meet us halfway? To kind of try to figure out how do we fund that and how do we replace that? So certainly it is not off the radar by any stretch of the imagination. We just continue to look for ways to find those funds.
And as a district leadership team, we meet weekly, and we're always looking at not just what we have, how do we enhance what we have, how can we do better, how can we do more, how do we provide better experiences and unique experiences for the kids inside and outside the classroom.
So, sorry, I'm sorry for this.
Oh, you're good.
So, several years ago, I was involved just as a village citizen in the comprehensive planning that the village does every 5 years, where they brought in a company, and essentially the company compares, you know, the resources that the village has versus villages of similar size and stuff, right? Like how much green space per resident, that kind of stuff. Because at first I thought maybe that's what the capital planning was, but it sounds like it's more, like you said, the nuts and bolts. and then maybe it's the long-term planning that you all have been doing.
Strategic planning.
Or strategic planning, which is more the,
Where do we wanna go as a
how do we
district?
compare, like, not, are we just keeping the lights on?
Yeah, what do we offer that's unique and different, and how do we compare in that way? Yeah, that's definitely part of the strategic plan.
Okay, that
So,
makes sense.
can I kind of team tag on to that question? So, like, have you gone to other K-12 schools in the area to see, like, go into their facilities and see what they're offering, see what classes they're offering, just make a comparison of like, oh, they're offering this thing, and we excel with this, but they might have an upper hand in this particular area, and like, compare like, oh, I think we could, that's something we could expound on in our district. And we could put a little bit of money and make a big impact, like, that could be the thing that draws more people in.
Programming's not my area.
Yeah, so we've been doing that, and I think that you're seeing that in our enrollment. I think that we are doing things differently. I'm in contact with the AAS group every month. We meet and we talk about programming, we talk about what we're doing. That example that I just shared with you, I shared at, because they were looking to fund a whole Arrowhead, and all the feeder schools wanted to do a marketing person and share that cost. And our solution to some of that is, I think our kids' voices are gonna speak louder than anybody else's voice. So that's why we developed the plan that we did, and 6th, 7th, and 8th grade all have the opportunity to have that class, because you're gonna start to see, once they learn how to do it, their voices are gonna be shining through. I think that's why we have a full music program that's fully supported throughout this district, unlike any other of the feeder schools. I think you're seeing our STEM program at a high rate of participation, and the programming that we're doing there. We're fully stocked with our PE, we're doing outdoor education with snowshoeing and hikes in the past with our new staff. You will continue to see, as we grow this portrait of a graduate and this new innovative idea of our students and growing our students and meeting them where they are, having had the opportunity and continue to have the opportunity to sub in their classes and ask them questions. What are you looking for? What would you like? What really gets you excited about school? Because we all know that if kids aren't excited about being in class, then we've got a whole other problem. And so that's really where a lot of this is born from, and it will continue to grow and develop as we get to know where we're headed. I mean, we just kind of chuckled today at our admin team about AI and all the things that AI can do, and we're mind blown by it, but then the reality sets in, gosh, we gotta get our kids ready for that world, one that we don't even know what is happening. So we're working on it, and that's our commitment to where we're at and what we have going on. I agree with you. I think our outdoor spaces could be enhanced for sure. Jake and I have talked through the foundation about the idea of maybe less bringing the woods into our green spaces, but opening up our woods so that we can utilize the woods more, and trying to build those pieces out. So those are all conversations that are have happened and will continue to happen.
Is the strategic plan has been mentioned a couple of times. I was looking online, it doesn't look like is it gonna be online?
It is, all of our stuff, all of our curriculum, we just met about that again today, the portrait of a graduate, the street, all of that is getting in its final stages to be up online, and I think we mentioned at a couple of board meetings by November is the plan.
And then I just got a nice full glossy from Arrowhead on everything that's going on, and I know that the district has sent them out. Are you guys gonna keep on doing that? So,
Yes.
like, I'm totally disconnected now, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
yeah,
you know,
for
I
sure.
know nothing was.
Yeah, Gretchen and I are in the process of building that out. I would like for us to be able to have some real scores from this last year instead of using 2 years ago. So for me, that's kind of what the waiting game is on that. We'll have our what do you call those? Whatever that word is that we can have them, but you can't get them. Embargo, there you go, that's it, embargoed, and then once those come out, which will be in November, we'll share that out.
Or even the fact that the mill rate's going down.
Yep, all of that will be absolutely, because I'm just gonna tell you, I think what we've got going on in Hartland right now is exceptional. I think it's an exceptional district with exceptional families and exceptional kids. And, you know, we talk about all these other conversations that are going on. I don't know, and I'm going on a limb on this one, I'm not sure that the community as a whole is saying, let's consolidate. And I think we got a whole lot to look at in what's going on with our individual schools
Yeah, I mean,
before we start having that conversation.
I mean, I
as a
don't
whole.
disagree, like, I enjoyed when my kids were here and having a smaller district, because then things, there was a lot more personal, right? But when you look at our, you know, part of the reason why we're getting more open enrollments in is because other schools around us are hurting, right? So,
I would like to think it's because of our great programs.
yes, that too, but, you know, when we offer band, another district can't because they.
That's exactly right, programming.
Right, you know, so I just, and it just, to me, it's like, I'm a taxpayer now, right? That's my role, like, to me, it makes more sense to consolidate, because there's a lot of duplicate expenses. I was talking about a lot as to why Arrowhead should just have one building, you know, because of all the duplicate expenses. Now, when you take into account all the St. Peter's schools, there's a lot of duplicate expenses. I mean, all the kids in our community could have band, you know.
I don't disagree, but I will, this will be the last thing I say on this, is I don't put a dollar amount on a child's head. I think what's best for kids is something that we need to be really looking at instead of looking at the dollar. And that'll be what I have to say about that.
I would say efficiency, yes, but at what cost? Is it as effective? You don't know.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're one of a few districts, right? Like,
Yeah.
everyone else is a K-12 district with the exception of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think it could be explored more.
No,
Sorry, one last question.
Absolutely.
How do we determine what the teacher raises are?
That's a good question. Well, we look at a couple things. One, we're gonna look at what inflation did. What's the cost of living and how is that impacting people? And then we also look at what's the revenue constraints we have as well. We are in the process of looking at putting together a more formal, sustainable advancement model where it's a little bit more transparent than just tied to CPI. But that's something that I've been tasked with, and I'm just in the early stages of doing that.
And you may recall my first year, we went through a fair market assessment and value, and we changed the salaries of several of our employees because they were well under many of our other employees, and we wanted to make sure that we made that even and square. We are in our third year of our final payment of 2 or 3 employees, and which is why then we started this idea of once those employees are all caught up, then we're gonna start to talk about maybe more of a step. I don't wanna say steps and lanes, but you know, that probably.
Structure of some sort.
Structure of some form.
Yeah.
And when does that determine? Because like grade school budgets are odd.
Odd is a
So the
good word.
timing wise, like, how do you know if you're going to have the money to fundraises?
It's tough. You
That's
have
a goofy thing with this.
Yeah.
So basically, contracts go out in the spring, right?
Right.
We're having our budget meeting now, and as he said,
Right.
two-thirds of our expenses are already locked in with more than that, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously our insurance and
Right.
utilities, and I mean, most of our expenses are kind of fixed at this point in time.
So as soon as this budget is finalized, I'll start building next year's budget, and I will start running what-if analysis. What if our health insurance increases X? What if we do Y for raises? What is that? So I'll run umpteen different scenarios, trying to look at one without federal funding, one with federal funding, one, you know, so it's.
When the board approved salary increases last year, Amy had a preliminary budget for this year.
Yeah.
And we obviously didn't know what the state was going to do, we didn't know a lot of things, right? So it's like she takes a guess, and that goes in, and then we kind of look at that and figure out, okay, we're gonna offer X.
Yeah, and it's not so bad if it's a one-off, like you can dip into fund balance if it's but the problem with salaries are, you're setting a base, and so if it's an ongoing increase, you can evaporate a fund balance very quickly, so you have to be careful.
All right, well, let's move on here then with kind of we have to, I think the community or the members, I think everybody here can vote, as I understand it, correct? There's
Residents.
residents can vote, okay? I think there's three things we need to vote on. The first one on the agenda is the salaries of school board members this year. Do we have, we're trying to figure out what
I was trying to pull them and I can't.
I think it's $2,700.
That's what I'm seeing.
Except for the president, who's $2,800.
Yep, that's what I'm saying, what I'm seeing.
So this past school year it was $2,800 to the school board president, and $2,700 to the other board members. So I think I'm looking for a motion. Is that how we do it, a motion? Isn't that?
Again, you're looking for a motion to address the salaries of school board.
Do we know what other districts do in our bigger schools as to what their salaries are, their compensation?
I do not know.
For the 24-25 school year, Swallow was $2,500 across the board. Stone Bank was $1,500 across the board. Merton was $850 across the board. Lake Country was $1,100 across the board. North Lake was $1,100 and $1,200 for the president.
What is the Arrowhead?
I don't have Arrowhead.
I believe Arrowhead's 3,400.
Maybe twice a month.
It's over three. Over three?
Kettle Moraine is $4,600. Waukesha is $6,400. McWanago $3,500 and $45,000. Elmbrook $42,000.
So Merton is the next closest size that we are as far as,
Yeah, and so for the 24-25, the response on this form is $850.
My understanding is that at their annual meeting last week, they changed that to 1,200.
They did, okay.
But they still are, they're similar size to us, a little smaller, but similar size to us. So I guess I'll make a motion to keep the school board salaries the same as last year at $2,700 for all members, except the president, and the president at $2,800.
I'll second. It's small enough where I think you could do it by raising or voice if you want, and then if you need clarity, you could ask.
Let's do a raise of hands. All in favor of that? You want to just add, you got that one?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're good.
All opposed? Okay, I think that passes. Thank you, Melissa. Okay, the second piece, we gotta set the date and time for Garrett. That we want to start the meeting next year. I guess it's generally this time in September, so.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
Because the slide says something about third Friday numbers, and last Friday was third Friday. So when is that the deadline to report numbers?
That's the actual physical count.
That's the day.
Right,
Yeah.
and then when does that information get back to?
We should have it in a week or 2 weeks out, yeah.
We get to count kids still within that next week
Yeah.
because of that limit because of sickness or other reasons they may be out,
So
so the
the
state
window is
gives
a
us
little-
some time.
So historically, that meeting was in August, and this last year or 2 years ago, we deferred to Amy Holly and said, Amy, like, when would it be most beneficial to you so that you can build the most realistic budget? Which is how we ended up on this day, because it gave her still enough time after the levy was approved or suggested by the community. It gave her enough time to fiddle with anything that needed to be changed and also get those numbers and still build her final budget for the October meeting. So that's how we ended up here, so. I would
So
propose
whatever you
referring to
Yeah.
again.
This works fine for me.
But do you have the third Friday count finalized in this number, in this budget? I
No,
think is the
no,
question.
it's not finalized.
Chose, was because it was after the third.
So
And
next year,
I
if we
think,
wanted
I
to.
think what a big piece of her, I'm just speculating, is we were in a budget year, state budget year. So a lot of that impacts what we can do as a district. And so I would guess she pushed it out as far as she could, because you never know when that biennium is gonna get passed.
I think you're swinging it
I
well.
remember that too.
So I'm fine with this time, I'm fine with,
I think even historically, it was even later than this date, like it was closer to the October date. But not like so close, but so whatever is,
I
you're
think,
the one that has to do all the work.
yeah, this works good for me.
Should we do September 21st would be the third Monday, September 26th?
That's fine with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that fine?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to have the annual meeting set for Monday night, September 21st at 5:30 p.m.
Such a random.
I'll second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? That motion passes. Finally, you saw the budget that Patrick so artfully well prepared and laid out and explained. And I appreciate what Jake said. I thought, I've been through this a couple times and they did a really great job just kind of making it digestible to those who don't live and breathe this world. So definitely is 15 years in the classroom and paid off and educating us a little bit here, so appreciate that. But I'd be looking for a motion to approve the budget. Now, just to understand, there was some discussion on this a couple of years ago. This is just basically a community recommendation. We will set the actual budget in October. It will move somewhat. We'll probably get a different head count or something of that nature. So it'll move up or down.
So I guess my question is if the community votes tonight to tax our maximum authority, would the board respect that come October?
I speak for myself and the finance committee approved this full authority budget. I would be one of 5 votes who would continue to vote for that in October, but not 5.
I was the same with Matt at the finance meeting. We asked Patrick to up the budget to the max authority, so.
I think it all depends on, between now and then, if anything changes, that's really what makes any difference if we get it.
How
And what-
drastically can it change? That, would it increase?
One thing we're hoping we may have this pin north to have a better idea what this 10-year plan looks like.
But is it really gonna change the mill rate, the tax levy that significantly?
Not materially.
Because we're not gonna, I mean, I'm trying to figure out a way that it would be.
It's a disclaimer that you have to put out there because it can change.
And I'm not saying it's not just if the community votes for like taxing to the maximum authority, right? Like I understand that's not gonna be the same number, that could go down, it could go up, you know? But I think taking that into consideration, what the community votes for.
I would say there were ballots provided on this. I would suggest this one, that people actually fill out the ballot and have Gretchen collect them. We will take into account what the community says here, and we'll get the full picture from Patrick in October, and then there'll be another opportunity in October for the community to come and speak at that meeting. And then we will be speaking on final numbers at that time. That would be my suggestion.
I just have a small but I think important motion to make to allow everyone in the room that's voting to change the period after the 21 to a comma.
We will not get by at $21.
Right.
In a very specific amount of cents.
We can all change that.
Oh, that's what I don't have that. That's what I was like, what are you talking about?
That's your attorney out there.
Oh, you gotta do by the book.
I just wanna say, like, yeah, I think going to the maximum levy or whatever.
Maximum authority,
I think makes a whole lot of sense, especially considering how we've been doing financially. And knowing that at some point, there is gonna be a big cost, and to be able to build up a savings account as we've been doing, makes a whole lot of sense to me. So if we can keep doing that, instead of 5 years or whatever, having to do a referendum or something.
Yeah, especially since referendums don't pass.
And the budget that you presented did, sort of
It's
max
the
out
full
the,
authority, correct?
based on the numbers.
Yes, yes,
Right.
it utilizes our full authority.
And do you know what our mill rate was last year?
Yep. Last year, it was 3.41. The year previous, it was 3.34.
This year is
3.25. But again, I don't really like mill rates because it's all subject to what happens to property values. I'd rather look at the levy. That's apples
It
to
just
apples.
gives us a better idea what our tax bill is gonna be.
Oh, true.
So I ask you guys to fill out the little slip of paper. Does everybody have one? I have one up here, you know. And everybody, did you get that one?
I got that.
Need everybody over here?
Thanks, Chairperson. Yes. So now,
I would ask Gretchen to count the votes and let everybody know the results.
Ten approved.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody's showing up here. Appreciate the dialogue and the interest. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whatever. You need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, well, thank you. We will take a 5-minute break or so, and then we have an actual regular school board. You're welcome to stick around for that too.
I think I'll have you done better. Good luck, Sean. We'll see you right later.
But I did my first.
You don't like to give up on handouts and like this is what you're supposed to do.
Oh,
So after having disappointment, I was hoping for a crazy time. Here, just out of curiosity, what time would you have? What time would you have proposed?
What do you think of the
I know, I've had this conversation with my wife. It is.
Appreciate it.
That was nice to meet you.
Yes, you too.
Good work, Brad.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's
Right, I know you must be sponsors. We want people to be comfortable.
Meet you there once.
That's kind of what we're saying.
I know, I know.
I think that would be easier.
Okay, great, thank you. So it's more just, I just remember in the next year. But, opening principal has been on the chair, so. Yeah, it was just, yeah, I need Jerry to keep my kids busy with the landscaping stuff.
Yeah, he's working on it.
I think Nick and Winston have walked over to South and picked apples a couple times.
Okay.
Because Jake has like told them to go pick apples. I was like, what? I think we got a couple. But I was like, wait, what? You're going to South to pick apples? What? I didn't know we had apple trees. But the kids were very excited about that.
That's good. There's tiny pieces too, like little donuts.
Oh, yes, I think we got some of those too. Yeah, sure.
I got three at home. One with one.
Belgian count was like just above 9,000.
Okay.
And like 84 of it was.
It was fascinating, just to see the process.
Never seen anything like that.
Oh, I know, it was so exciting.
Right, so it would never happen again.
Oh, man.
That was. Yes, would you please?
The ring game, ring. Procedure.
Yes. Yes, and that's what we took. This is and the check and apparently stapled to my arse, I'm like, oh, $25 cell phone reimbursement from work.
All right. Everybody ready? All right, let's call the meeting to order at 7:15 p.m. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proof of giving public notice. Notice was given. All right. Item number 4 we can skip because all members are present. There was no sign-up sheet, but I'll leave it to Val. Would you like to say?
I'm good.
You sure you're still on the sheet?
Yeah. No, I'm good.
Okay. So then we'll move on Into committee reports, PPC.
All right, I can report for PPC. We met on September 11th. We went through a few different things. One of the items on there was a personnel report. That's why I'm letting everybody know that there was a sheet on there that was not accurate. So it did not make this board meeting. There was no updates to personnel reports, so it's been cleaned up. So
I'm
what you see
wondering why
is blank. It's blank. But that meeting had an older one on there. So we are good there. We reviewed the employee handbook one last time for the suspension board, so you see that in there as well in the consent agenda. We talked about the social studies curriculum. We talked about a slow rollout for our K through 5.
What, I'm sorry,
A slow rollout
okay.
for K through 5. Which I believe that she's attached on there as well, kind of all those pieces that are for each grade level. Also, curriculum is being used for the social studies for the folks that are taking inspiration, which is great. That'll all be up on our website here by November as well, so excited to see that rolling. We did talk about portrait of a graduate. We talked about the overview, and that was attached as well inside this, which thank you very much for that. And then the organizational chart was updated, so now to see who reports to who and the best chain of command that's out there, so it's just helping us organize as well as the staff and anybody who's what's going on. So.
All right, thank you. Finance committee, sorry. Or was there one?
I said one question because it was asked when it's listed on the website for the information that we talked about. If we talk about where it would be by school or would it be by a special?
We haven't had that figured out yet because there are certain tabs that go along with the group that we're gonna be, but it will be very clear and it will also be part of the dashboard. So once we get all of those pieces put together.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah, sorry.
No, I want to make sure you time it right.
Yes.
Okay. Finance committee.
I don't really have much else to talk about. We spent a lot of time on what we just spent a lot of time on, so.
I have a question now. I was just going through the expense reports that were there, and there are a lot of larger expenses and different things that were there. Are you guys still pulling out?
We are, yes, we are.
A couple receipts or
Yep, yeah, we pull 2 or 3 every time, and we cleaned up we had a reporting issue 1 month, so there was some descriptions missing on what you guys saw, but we got that kind of remedied, so I think we're doing that on a monthly basis.
And I'll continue to do the detailed and summaries.
Yep.
there were,
If you see something like that and want to bounce it through us, you're happy to do that. I'm sure you can ask Patrick.
Yeah, whatever you need.
I don't think that it needs to come through me, but you want to ask about it, everybody can ask it just to say.
Yeah, that's why, that's.
Trust me, I ask enough questions
That's what every
that he's used to the questions.
no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Then moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda allows us to approve in bulk monthly items that are normal. The only one that we usually pull out or suggest reading for public view is the donations. Is there any board member that would like to read off those donations before looking for a motion for that consent agenda?
I do.
Question.
We got a $1,000 donation from the Oconomowoc Memorial Auxiliary for the Angel Fund, which is awesome. They do it, I believe we said annually they do that, so that's really great that they do that. And then HLEF donated, there was a micro grant from the 5K teachers for a microwave over by them so that they save some time running down to the teacher's lunch.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for those donations. Okay. Does anyone have any questions, anything that needs to be pulled out of the consent agenda? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have questions.
Sure. Is there something you would specifically like to pull?
Well, so when we say approved, are we approving the employee handbook without discussing it as a board? So we're just assuming that
Correct. That would be part of it.
I would motion to pull that out and discuss separately, please.
Okay. And just so you know, you don't have to do a motion, you can just request it that way.
I request that And then I guess the only other thing is, since I am new to the board, the annual seclusion and restraint kind of, I get that it's an annual notice, I don't even know the question to ask because I don't know what I don't know, but
It's a required report.
I get what the words mean, I just am more like a clarification on what it is, what.
I think it's something we're required by law to produce to the state, so I think every school in Wisconsin is filling out that same form.
If you want to pull it out and discuss it, we're prepared to do that, and it's entirely up to you if that's something you would like.
No, I don't think so, because it's not like I can change anything, because what happened happened, so it's not like I'm gonna change anything, and no, I'm okay.
If you have a problem with the report,
No, I just don't understand what I'm approving, like.
well, I'm gonna make a decision to pull that out so there can be discussion. Is there anything else that needs to be talked about specifically? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve items A, C, E, F, and G. So moved.
A second.
Any discussion on that approval motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Consent agenda items A, C, E, F, and G approved unanimously. Okay, first one is the annual notice, seclusion and restraint. Now, feel free to ask any questions you'd like.
I don't know the questions to ask.
That's okay.
Couple maybe definitions?
So I asked Lisa Stromick, our Director of Student Services, to come tonight, just in the event that somebody had a question for clarification. So Lisa, I'm gonna turn it over to you to go ahead and, yeah, you're fine right there, sure.
So every year, the state requires, let's put it, during the school year, there's an incident that happens that has to do with a seclusion or restraint of any child, general education or special education. The staff need to write an incident report and document that. Then at the end of the parents are notified, there's a whole system of that. At the end of every year, going backwards for last year then, you have to report to DPI statewide. So I actually had to put this in a portal so that the state knows, right, what's going on. I have to do that later, you have to be notified first. So we're just notifying the board and the community as to what had happened. That's the notice before I then give it to DPI by December 1st, is the next cutoff time. And that just is a reflection of what occurred last year. So when I then review it for this year, then we know I can read them all and just see where we might need to improve some areas of concern, not concern, and move further. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and so I'm assuming when you put it into the portal for DPI, they're then monitoring trends of, hey, this school is kind of going up a lot, or
yes.
What are they looking at?
Yes, so I actually wrote it exactly how I uploaded it. So
Okay.
they'll be seeing the same data we see, and that's what they require, no more, no less. I have more internal data, right, that I can help shape our teams and help our students. But the state just needs this. And what they base this information off of is sometimes, yeah, they will if there's a trending up, but they don't have time for that, let's be honest, right? What they're looking at is for the state, right? So then they will really look at trends for the state as far as what do schools need, what's trending overall for school needs, what's going on there. But yes, you would hope that someone would be micro looking at this if we're not doing it ourselves.
I will add to that, I think it's a great opportunity to talk about the great training that we do for our staff. And so I don't know if you want to kind of, utilize these.
Yeah, every year, you're required, DPI requires you to at least have one staff member to be trained called crisis prevention. So it's nonviolent, verbal and verbal de-escalation training. You're only required to do one. This district has all special education staff trained, as well as administrators. I will be asking all administrators to be retrained. It's every year, you have a refresher. It's 3 or 4 hours at each refresher. Your initial training is an 8-hour training. So anyone coming into our building who have not been trained, even in California nationwide, CPI is being used. It is the approach to use. Because it has a lot of verbal de-escalation first. Physical restraint is last resort, imminent danger to themselves or others. That is the threshold. So with that in mind, that is what the staff need to be following.
And I would say,
practice in children.
yeah, so even, Amy Harker-Murray, who came from the medical field and used to be on our board, would oftentimes talk about this, like, when you think of the restraint in a hospital room versus restraint in a school, they are even remotely close.
That was my next question, but I was like, can we ask that? Like, I don't
We're
want
not
to
strapping kids down and doing all that, right? Like, that was a really important thing.
Restraint typically in a school is anytime, so you can physically prompt a student, right? If it's a little 4K or 5K and they want to hold your hand, like, oh, sweetheart, that's a physical prompt. That's not a restraint. But if they were really struggling, maybe they're banging their head, and they're continuing to bang your head against the wall. First, you would put your hand there, it's least restrictive, so you just put your hand between their head and the wall, right? But now if it gets worse and it needs more, now they're hitting and they're very dysregulated, that is when a staff member, according to this training, might restrain them, right? It sounds hard. Restrain them to not hurt themselves more, right? And what I typically, it's maybe 10, 15 seconds, right? It's, honey, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna protect you. And then it's, are you safe, are you calm, and then it's off. But just that little 5, 10, 15 seconds needs to be written up, right? For best practice, because you do need to report that to the parent, right? Like, hey, your child was in imminent danger of hurting themselves in this situation. We did restrain them, we did hold them. Restraint just means restricted motion, right? So we just restricted their motion temporarily so we can regain control. They're now safe, and then we release, but while we were still in proximity. So that is what typically is seen in schools, is that. They train a lot on blocking, so a lot of our students are dysregulated and they might come after you, try to scratch or hit or bite. We don't restrain during those, it's blocking and protecting yourself because you can get away from a little kicking and whatever. That is most often typical. But again, if you were to restrain, that would be a typical, like just a quick, I held their little hands while they were kicking and just to restrict that movement for a little bit, and then release. Seclusion is the same thing. Seclusion shouldn't be, if you're just regulating a child and you say, we're gonna just go here while you're regulating, that's different. The seclusion means that you didn't allow them to leave for safety reasons, right? And I've seen that too. It was maybe under a minute, where you're just like, I don't think it's the best thing for you to run outside the building or run, because we're not a locked facility. So the kids can run out, right?
You just can't get in.
Correct.
From the outside. I just wanted to clarify that, because I know we are locked from the outside.
So there are times that maybe it is dangerous, maybe it's bus time, or maybe it's high traffic time, that might be a time where staff is gonna say, we restrict you from walking outside the building right now. And that they would have to write that up. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about it because I know my first grader now was a runner, and still is kind of a little, whatever. He's getting better, but every time, because like I'm seeing these numbers, it's like 4, and I'm like, well, I know he was darting here and there, and not that I know that everyone has his best interest at heart and he is completely safe, and I know that's not what I'm asking, but how do you know, how does it turn from that to we have to put it on this list?
Anytime you're restricting movement, and it's written that way, and if the staff felt it is a restricted, it was a restraint, don't do that.
And then you said just the special education staff, no?
Oh, sorry.
Just the special education staff are trained, are any primary teachers?
We might select a few, but again, you can be trained on just the verbal de-escalation,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So we want everyone to be trained on that verbal. Not everyone should be trained to do restraint, and that's another thing you have to watch, right? You don't want to get carte blanche to everyone.
Yeah,
You
okay,
want to
that
make
makes
sure that
sense.
it's specific staff. So typically an administrator, you want an administrator there if things are going in that direction.
Thank you. That is very helpful. I think with you saying it was completely different, because in my head, that's what I'm thinking, because I'm just a parent, I'm not an educator, so.
Sounds a lot worse than
It does, it really does, and I know that it can be. It can be, and I get that, and I'm not trying to diminish that at all. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I would motion to approve the annual notice for seclusion and restraint.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, the annual notice for seclusion and restraint passes. The next item that was pulled out of the consent agenda is item number D, employee handbook.
Was there anything in the PPC committee that kind of stood out that we changed majorly in the handbook?
I would say there was two things that were a little more stringent. One was the dress code, and then everything adhered to the policies, but I think it was the dress code and what was one?
The other one was the district medical leave, so we do have some new employees that come into our district who might be full-time, and then they're, we're very much into raising families here in Hartland. So those employees typically would not qualify for FMLA, but in order to be ADA compliant for particularly maternity leaves, we have instituted a district medical leave that would align directly with FMLA for those individuals, which is just super employee friendly and the right thing to do when it comes to having families.
Oh, that's awesome.
What I would say about the employee handbook, both of those pieces have been communicated to our staff. Our staff are actually good with the new dress code piece. Because that just was getting a little loose there for a little while, so we tightened that up so they can have those conversations. The other piece about this employee handbook, remember this is an arm to your board policies. So there's not going to be anything that's different because we are aligned to the board policies. This was really written through the Neola process, and then every 3 months or quarterly, we're bringing more adjustments because we're gonna go to PPC and say, hey, we noticed that this policy really doesn't fit with what we've got going on. We need to ask to change this. And then that would also then catapult us into changes of both the employee handbook and the student handbook because they're all tied together directly. That's that great work that y'all did last year with that board policy stuff. So it's good to have that.
And no policies were changed since then.
Correct.
Okay, so nothing is like.
We haven't been through a quarterly. We're gonna go through a quarterly and there will be some things that I bring forward at that time.
Well, I guess, yeah, then I would motion to approve the employee handbook.
Second. Matt, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the employee handbook, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Consent agenda
Thank you, Lisa.
item has been approved. We'll move on to number 8, district update from our superintendent.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I do have a few things that I just wanna put together so that we can share with some of the great things that are happening. Portion of a graduate in action. From leadership opportunities like student councils, expanded committees to service projects across grade bands. So we've got 5th graders working with 3rd graders and 2nd graders working with kindergartners. We have ambassadors and 5th graders, just all kinds of opportunity for our students to learn, to lead, serve, and thrive. In October, we will be bringing all of our schools together in an alignment and a presentation that outlines the great work that's been happening in September and October. So that we're working with the leadership team. We had a meeting about it again today, and that's really where we're gonna pull everything together and give the community a better picture of what we're doing in schools. I can tell you firsthand that it's really exciting to walk through the buildings. It just feels like a different year. Energy, it is a different year, but it feels different, you know, and our staff would tell you that, and our students too. It's just been pretty amazing. The next piece that I want to highlight is our academic growth and opportunity. Our early data from MAPS and AimsWeb show strong progress, particularly in reading and math. Not that there was a lot of room to grow there. We're really doing a great job. I'm excited to see what the forward exam, while many other districts are worried about what NAEP is saying and forward exam is saying in their driving scores, we're increasing our growth. And I will tell you that when your students are already up here, that growth is less, we're still growing. And so I'm really proud of the great work of our teachers and our staff, and it's partially due to programming and offerings. And one of those pieces that ties into that is, some of you may have seen in a recent newsletter, the offering of Futura Adventures, which is a Spanish program for our young students. And I've asked Lindsay Stable here this evening to give us just a few points about what is it that you're doing, what is this program, and just tell us a little bit about it, would you please?
Yes, well,
Yes,
thank
great,
you.
thank you.
So good evening. So my name is Lindsay Stable. I'm excited to be here, and I wanted to thank Chris for reaching out and inviting me to share the information about Futura Language Professionals in our enrichment program at Hartland North and Hartland South Elementary Schools. So I am also a local parent in the Hartland area in the neighboring district of Lake Country School. So I understand the importance of education and enrichment programs in the community. Futura Language Professionals has been in business since 2001, so it's almost our 25-year anniversary. Our regional locations outside of our Milwaukee area include Madison and the greater Twin Cities of Minnesota. We offer parent-funded enrichment Spanish classes at the local elementary school level in before and after school setting. In this setting, we have partnerships with nearby districts, including but not limited to Elmbrook, Kettle Moraine, Menominee Falls, Milwaukee, and more. We also partner with private schools to provide integrated programming during the school days for elementary and middle school students. In this setting, Futura provides the teacher and the curriculum for the full school year. Our mission is to provide dynamic Spanish courses that motivate students to become lifelong language learners and enlighten children at a young age of the beauty of other cultures. Our approach is a dynamic hands-on experience with language lessons and conversation practice. In addition, we share cultural lessons about Spanish-speaking countries to foster global awareness and appreciation of foods, festivals, animals, and travels in other countries. So our classes meet once a week after school for an hour for 8 weeks in the fall and then 8 weeks in the winter-spring semester. We began our enrichment program last spring at Hartland North after a parent had reached out with interest in bringing our Spanish program to the school for her children. We had about 22 students enrolled at that time, and currently we have 26 students at Hartland North, and we are starting a program this semester at Hartland South with 6 currently enrolled. So our curriculum is a theme-based adventure program, and it works well to engage new students as well as returning students in the lessons. Each semester is a new theme, so last semester was animals, this semester is travel, and it continues to rotate as well. In each class, our teachers provide lessons with picture flashcards, practice activities, games, songs, conversation reinforcement. Teachers are provided with a comprehensive kit of materials. Curriculum includes detailed lessons, and they are trained in our positive and lively approach, appealing to all ages and learning styles. So families that are enrolled also have access to practice resources on our website's portal if they're looking for even more Spanish outside of the classroom. I also just wanted to share that Futura has live virtual classes via Zoom for any adults who are interested in learning Spanish, beginning their language journey or brushing up on past skills. They are conveniently held in the evenings from 6 to 7 p.m. for 6 sessions each semester. Fall classes beginning mid-late October, and we have levels beginner, intermediate, as well as a travel themed class. We also offer a live virtual after-school class for middle school students that may be interested in extra Spanish practice and reinforcement to further prepare themselves for high school Spanish and beyond. So, in summary, thank you again for your time and the invitation to share about Futura's program. We value our partnerships and look forward to working with the students to foster their interest in Spanish with creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication, skills that are essential across all grade levels and transferable to both academic and real-world settings. So I'm not sure if you guys have questions, if I open it up to you for questions. I also have handouts and flyers that I can leave with you about our programs.
I think from my perspective, I think it's really important that you see the connector here. So providing these programs after school or just as alternative programmings for our children, kindergarten through 5th grade, ties beautifully into what we have going on 6th through 8th grade. We have a really robust Spanish program, 6th grade through 8th grade. So much so that they tend to be in the higher Spanish classes when they go to Arrowhead. So we talked earlier tonight about programming and the importance of, are we doing what's best for kids? And by providing this bridge, this introduction, it really does bring the essence of the importance of a second language and all of the learning that goes along with that. And some of you may recall last year we did some cultural luncheons. We got Chartwell's involved in some celebrations in that regard as well. So I just think it's a great program. I think it's super important for us to always keep things connected and aligned, and I think this does this beautifully. So I really appreciate your timing. I really appreciate you coming here and taking that time. Does the board have any questions or thoughts regarding this that they'd like to have? My only thing is, I know that there's a price to this. How do we have anything that families that are interested that maybe, how do they kind of get involved? Yeah, absolutely. We have a process for that. They would just have to contact the district and we would help them.
Can I add to that?
Yes, absolutely.
So my company also does provide need-based grants, and we do parent payment plans. So
that's great. So those of you who may not have heard that, the company also provides need-based grants as well as payment plans for this opportunity. Do you cap a program like?
We
you said you have 26 right now at North?
We do typically have a max enrollment based on our ratio. So 30 at Hartland North, for example, would be our max per se. If we had more than that, we'd have to look into spacing and talk about teacher ratios because we would have 2 teachers and not want the ratios to go off on that.
Thank you.
And in talking with you prior to coming, one thing I really liked that she brought up was the fact that it just introduces Spanish to the young kids before they get into having to take the class. So there's that familiarity. And she shared a story with me about a parent that was at a grocery store or someplace, and somebody else was speaking Spanish. And the child was in the Futura program and then turned to her mom and said, "Hey mom, she's speaking Spanish." And they were all excited. That's what we want. And that falls right in line with the portrait of a graduate, our strategic plan to get lifelong learners and make them love it. And it's to introduce programs at a younger age so that they feel impassioned to take the advantage of the curriculum and the programs that you talked about that we do well. So it's not just children coming to Hartland-Lakeside because of unfortunate circumstances in other districts, it's because we're doing wonderful things. So it's a positive, it's not a negative for anyone else. It's positive, so my hats are off to the administrators, thank you, and to you for putting this program together to complement the already robust curriculum that we have. So thank you, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to safety and well-being. Transportation seems to make its way all the time to our the front of our focus, which is good, right? We want to keep our students safe. So recently sent out a new transportation notice to our district. Within that, there's new safeguards for new dismissal protocols, for unaccounted for child safety checklists. We added staff supervision, ensuring every child gets home safely. And Patrick, I've kind of passed the torch a little bit to him because this would fall under his purview, is the idea of
as we look at that shuttle experience and how we're lining our buses up, Patrick is working with Dousman to maybe change that alignment so that when, if there were to be a situation where a bus rolled, it would roll backward and not forward, because our buses, kids don't go in the back, right? They are only in the front. So you're gonna see probably that change this fall yet, where we realign our lines, we redraw the lines on the pavement and we change that. We had a record today. I think all students were loaded and transferred by 4:06 outside, which was pretty incredible. It's the quickest that has been. So we're getting that to be a pretty well-oiled machine. We are also looking at and working with Dousman to possibly get those tracker tags so kids check in, check off with a scanner. There's a price to it. So when you start to talk about budgeting and you're like, okay, where do you put that? I don't put a price tag on the safety of the kids. So when we start to look at that, we've got to really talk about what is important for our children. So those are the things that we're looking at. I'm really pleased about that from a safety perspective and the works that we've done. Today we had another situation. Our safety protocol, we followed it to a T. It was great. And it wasn't great that we were in a situation, but this team, this new team, this group of people that we have together really understands the importance of process and procedure and protocol, and that's what you need in every single situation like the one we had this morning. In addition to that, we talked a little bit about well-being. I'm happy to announce that we have partnered with Chartwell's for the Great Apple Crunch. And what is that? Well, district-wide, we will be all eating an apple. So if you're available Thursday, October 9th, we are going to bring everybody together in their own buildings and at the same time. And I guess what I will say is we're excited to host the Apple Crunch Day and provide our students with a unique opportunity to learn about the significance of locally sourced produce. And this event encourages healthy eating habits, supports our local farmers, and reinforces our commitment to sustainability. Within that, we also have the opportunity to, I don't know if I have it with me, it doesn't look like it, it's okay. We're gonna do how much does this bushel weigh and how many apples are in it. So like a little contest for our kiddos. They're all gonna get, I participated in the Great Apple Crunch little wristlet. And then in addition to that, they're gonna be provided with a salad, a fruit salad it's got some greens in it. It is also apples and cherries, and then they're gonna be taught a little bit about the nutritional value of that. And every child will have the opportunity to try that during the lunchtime for free. It's just a little sample of that salad. The recipe will be sent home. And then additionally, we are looking at an afternoon smoothie snack that is apple-based with yogurt and oranges. So kind of looking at some different opportunities. Again, that's all through our partnership with Chartwell's and just throwing an idea out there and saying, yes, let's do that. So again, committing to our strategic plan and doing what's healthy, trying to help our students learn a little bit more about nutrition and the value of that. So we're really excited about that. That fun little activity that we're gonna do. So more to come, but because it's gonna happen before our next board meeting, I wanted to bring it up tonight. And then next on our thing is our community partnership. I do wanna say a special thank you to Hartland PD, Fire EMTs, and the Waukesha Sheriff Department for their ongoing partnership in keeping our children safe, not only for incidents when we have a big incident, but just on a regular basis. They are in our buildings, they are present, they are building relationships with our students. They believe in building relationships instead of always showing up when there's a problem. And so they've really committed to that, much like some people call or talk about an SRO. That's been a conversation that we have had. It's just really expensive, really kind of one of those things that we're not sure we're ready for. But they have committed to looking out for our kids and being here and being present. And we couldn't appreciate that more. When we talk about professional growth, all of our staff are engaged in training, which is aligned to our strategic plan. And I can't say enough about our leadership team, committed to disagreeing at the table, but walking out the door together in agreement, and carrying that torch and making sure that we're doing what's best for kids at all times. And earlier, somebody had mentioned, I think it was Patrick, that we do meet every week, and it is a fruitful invigorating, positive message that we always carry out of that room, and it's great collaboration and great ideas come pouring out of that room. So really happy to have that team. Community and family engagement includes advisory councils for staff, parent, leadership. It's giving us yet another way to listen, share, and work together. So we have HLEF who really supports our mission and really works with us to make sure that happens. We have a different committee that is really kind of that ambassador and really talking and asking questions and looking for clarifiers in our parent advisory council. We have coffee talk, right? So we have those coffees and conversations. We had a great turnout this last time. We've got another one coming up October 14th. So we're really kind of focusing on hearing voices and sharing and working together. Talk a little bit about fiscal responsibility and strategic budgeting. We are really truly making a huge effort to align our resources to support student needs while addressing long-term fiscal challenges. You heard a lot about the fiscal challenges tonight, but the district made some big decisions to support student need, and that includes having a counselor at every building, hiring a social worker, ensuring that every child within our student services realm, from gifted and talented to our most struggling students, support, and they're doing a great job of making sure that every kid is managed, and we're doing it in a fiscally responsible way. So really hats off to those teams and people. Looking ahead, another really exciting organization that we're putting together to serve a population of our community. We are igniting the Knights Care Crusade. And the Knights Care Crusade is more than a seasonal program. It's an opportunity to build a sustainable culture of empathy and service within our schools, guided by our mission to empower and engage students and families in a meaningful, supportive experience. More to come on this, but we do have this wonderful little logo. You'll see it's our Knights. And it says Hartland-Lakeside Knights Care Crusade, and it's our Night with a Heart. And there's a lot more to come on this, but we're really excited and invigorated by the partnerships that are going to be happening that I know that will carry us through, and the great opportunity for our students to learn what it is to serve, to be empathetic, and to care for others during the months of October, November, and December. So as we move forward, you're going to hear a lot more about this. We are partnering with SERVE. We are going to partner with HLEF, we hope. I got a meeting this week. And then also just community members in general. And this is really meant to be a school district thing. So our students will be involved in the planning and how all of this will come together, kindergarten through 8th grade, and then our staff will be, in the end, they will be the initiators of the project. So I can clarify that more for you at another time, but I'm just so excited to share this out. They will hear about it on Friday, and we will really start to gather donations in the future. So really excited about this great work that is being done. So in closing, we are going to continue to carry forward our strategic plan and our portrait of a graduate, ensuring every decision is grounded and preparing students not for our past, but for their futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Okay, we'll move on to number 9, Director of Business Services report.
So at our last finance committee meeting, we talked a little bit about kind of where we stand financially. Cash in the bank, we had received our final property tax payment. So we had about, at the time of the meeting, at the end of August, I should say, we had about 7.6 million in total. A little over 200,000 in our checking. In our savings, about 5.65. Capital improvement was right around 1.73. And then our student activity account with about $8,000. August saw a lot of supply ordering, lots of supply ordering to get us prepped for the school year, but not much outside of normal business. As far as anybody have questions on board financial report. As far as the capital improvements update, August, Greg and his team spent the bulk of August getting the buildings prepped for kids. We did have, they put together and moved in a lot of furniture for teachers, getting classrooms ready, some final cleaning. We did have some tree damage over at North by the 4K entrance that they had to do some work on. In August, South had 7 new exterior doors installed, rekeyed, and some protective film applied. The 3M protective film applied on those doors. At North Shore, they put in new outdoor swing in the back area and replaced some of the protective film. And we also had to do a hot water replacement in the North Shore school office because their hot water heater started to leak and was not working. So that was kind of to sum up their August.
This was all, just to reiterate, this is all coming from the general fund 10, not our capital, so we're doing all of this without touching. Fund 36.
It's all Fund 10 operations.
I will just do a shout out because I know he's watching. That water situation could have been much worse had Chris Dillon not known that he can help his better half figure out how to shut the water off and get that all taken care of. I mean, it really could have been a bad situation because it happened on a weekend. And the commitment that those individuals have to this district and the work that they do is incredible. So shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have. You're welcome.
Okay, on to new business. The approval of the bilingual SLP contract. Did you want to cover that or?
Lisa is here again to answer that question, just what is it and whatnot. So if you just want to give us a brief overview of what that's about.
Our speech pathologists speak English, we don't speak Spanish, and we have another one that needs evaluation, and the professionals decided that they felt to rule out that the child would be best served and assessed by a bilingual English, Spanish speaking speech pathologist. See that?
Right.
So that is why we went in that direction. So it would just be one evaluation for speech, Spanish. That is it.
I was wondering, it's such a small hour.
Yeah.
Right, just one evaluation.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the bilingual SLP contract as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, number 11, Board President report. I don't have anything new. Does anyone have anything for future agenda items? Okay, we'll move on to future meetings. BBC, we have Thursday, October 16th at 9 a.m., correct?
Can make a request to do that.
You can make a request.
I'll be in the office that week, so the 14th in the morning or the 17th work better for me. Or a different, if it needs to be pushed to a different week. But if we want to keep it that same week, 14th or 17th. And 9 a.m. would still work for me.
14th is coffees and conversations.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what's on the 14th? Why is that so?
I know, I was thinking the same.
Friday, the 17th, that would work. I can do it.
Did you say the 17th of?
Yeah, correct, October.
Yeah, I'll make that one. Yeah. Can we go for 9:15? Can we start at 9:15 instead of 9? Is that okay? Just because that puts me back to back and then if anything happens.
Yep.
Okay. That's great, thank you.
My apologies for that. Thanks for accommodating.
So October 17th, 9:15 a.m.
You good?
Yes.
Okay. Finance Committee, Friday, October 24th, 8:30 a.m. Then we have the regular school board meeting, Wednesday, October 29th. It was moved to Wednesday, not Monday. So public, please note that the meeting was moved to Wednesday, October 29th at 6:30 p.m. Everyone's still good with that? Yes, okay. Right, and at this point, I'm looking for a motion to enter into closed session for discussion of possible action regarding superintendent evaluation goals and objectives, the message for measuring those, along with personnel matters at hand.
So moved.
Who's taking that?
Chris. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are now in closed session.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
thank
coming.
you. Please make sure the office doesn't get locked.
Thanks, guys, have a great evening.
Great job, Hendrik.
Lisa, great job, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Thanks for the discussion.
I took Spanish.
She should get confirmed.